In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a box using Photoshop's Lasso tools. Let's get started. When you're drawing a box, it's important to make sure that you have the perspective believable. And when you have a believable perspective, that means you have the edges of the box moving towards a vanishing point, which means you're going to have the top and bottom edges converged to some point out in the distance. So what I'm doing here is I'm starting off by making a box, filling it in with Alt Backspace or Option Delete, and I'm going to make both sides. I'm thinking about my light source as well. The light source is going to be coming from the left, and a shadow is going to be cast on the right hand side. So I'm starting out by working with shape. At this point, if I want to massage the shape a little bit, I'm just going to make this box look a little bit more cartoony by having the left and right edges of the side of the box converge to its own vanishing point as well. So I've got everything set up. Let's go ahead and make the top and bottom of the box. So on the front facing side, I'm making a lasso selection tool using the polygon lasso tool. Control J, Control U. Do the same thing on the bottom side. So this is basically reviewing some of the techniques we've already learned in the previous two videos. Control J, Control U. We're putting it into practice to make more complicated things. And then we have the side of our boxes. And I'm just going to hold down the Shift key so I can add to my selection. Control J, Control U. I'm going to make these a little bit darker. Or maybe I'll make it, yeah, a little bit darker. Let's do the same thing for the side that is on the right. Use the polygon lasso tool. I'm holding down the Shift key to add to my selection. So that's how I can make two selections at once. Control J, Control U. Let's make this a little bit darker. Go back to the base layer for the side. Control J, Control U. And I'll make that a little bit darker as well. Great. Now I want to add a little bit of thickness. So basically this box is a wooden box. It's comprised of 2x4s that are on either end. And we would see the thickness of this 2x4. So on the base color for the front side of the box, I'm going to add some thickness, like so. And on the right hand side, I want to add some thickness to this 2x4. Control J, Control U. I'll make that a little bit darker. That's what gives the box a little bit more dimension. Notice that I'm always taking a selection and putting it on its own layer. This allows me to have ultimate control over each individual piece. When I'm happy with how everything turns out, I can always collapse it. But this is a much faster way of working, and it allows me to easily customize every aspect of my project. So with the Poly Lasso tool, let's make the individual separations from the beams. I'm going to hold down my Shift key. I'm going to make these blocks slightly farther apart from each other. And then again on the base layer for the front, Control J, Control U. And now dial that in. So Control U again brings up the hue saturation. And this allows me to rapidly create and tweak colors without having to go back to the swatches panel each and every single time. I think I only visited the color panel twice. And that was initially to set up the base colors for the front and for the side. So I've made the selections for the right side of the box, Control J, Control U. There we go. Got the base shape already figured out. Let's add a little hole on the front of our box. So using the circular selection tool or the elliptical selection tool, I'll just make a hole, hit Control X to cut that out. And we need to kind of, when we cut that hole out, we need to make that look believable. We need to have some thickness for that piece of wood. The way I'm going to handle that is I'll make a new layer underneath that base layer. I'll make a circular selection, like so. I'm going to now hold down the Option or the Alt key, and with the circular selection tool active, I'll just subtract. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating almost like a half moon selection to kind of denote the thickness of that piece of wood. And now I'll pick a dark value, Option Delete. Option Delete will fill in whatever color you have. So now I've got some thickness on that wood. And the rest of it, on its own layer, I'll just fill that in with black. So something's in the box. So I've got all the basic shapes configured for this particular object. Next, I want to add some texturing information. Yes, it looks like wood, or it gives the appearance, but I want to make it more obvious. So I can switch now to my freeform lasso tool by holding down Shift and L. And I'm going to make these wood grain elements slightly curved, not so straight, just to give it a little bit more character. And again, I'm holding down the Shift key, and I'm drawing straight lines or straight selections with the lasso tool. I'm not worried about making these perfectly straight, because wood grain is not straight. It's usually curved, right? And I'll kind of move my way through this. You can add some little curves and little knots as well, just to kind of break up the uniformity of it all. So I've made all of these selections. On the front side base, I'll hit Control J, Control U, and make the wood grain noticeable. I don't want to make it too dark, because then at that point it becomes a little bit too distracting. I want all these colors to kind of blend. Let's see what that looks like if I make the wood a little bit lighter. I think that looks a little bit better, right? So I've got some mid-tone values, which is the actual medium brown there. I've got some light values, which is the grain itself, and I've got some relatively dark values, which are the gaps that are between each wood plank. So it's almost creating bright, medium, dark within that section. Let's now turn our attention to the two vertical beams that are on the front. Again, holding down the Shift key. I'll hit Control J, Control U, make those a little bit darker. I'll do the same thing for the top and bottom. This time the wood grain is going to go across. Again, holding down the Shift key, using the freeform lasso tool. Control J, Control U. Oh, I think I have both of those beams on separate layers, so I have to go to each one. Not a problem. Great, now I can turn my attention to the right side of the box for the base layer there. Repeat the same process. Control J, Control U. I'll make these a little bit darker, but not so dark. And again, for the two vertical beams, do the same thing. Control J, Control U. Make it darker. And let's now tackle the horizontal beams. So you can see how we can very quickly make something look like it has some texture to it. So we have our wooden box. Let's give it some character. Let's put a warning sign of sorts. So on the topmost layer, in a brand new layer, I'm going to make like a sticker that you might find that is affixed onto this box, and I'll use the word caution. I'll make that black, and I'll transform it using the transform tool, Control T, and I'll rotate it to match the orientation of the sticker. And I want to make that fade a little bit so it doesn't look like super prominent, so I'll hit the V key to activate the move tool, and that allows me to then, on that layer, change the opacity. If I use any of the numbers like 1, 2, 3 through 9, I can control the opacity. So I'm typing in the number 6, and that makes that layer 60% transparent. Right? So now I've got the box, I've got the sticker that's on the box, it has some dimension to it. Let's lastly add a shadow. So at the very bottommost layer, again with the polygon lasso tool, I'll extend the shadow back, and I want to have it match the same vanishing point. So this line that I'm going to create here is going to converge with the other lines that I have. So like this line, and this line should all intersect hopefully at the same point. Now I'll fill that in with black. So I have this box with a shadow, and now if I'm complete, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and merge the whole thing together. You can make a series of boxes very quickly by creating a base box, duplicating it, and then transforming it to make boxes of different sizes. So it's a very fast way of working, and it's relying on the lasso tool to quickly flesh things out. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it to be useful. Let me know in the comments below. We're going to continue to build on our knowledge of the lasso tool, and at some point we're going to be integrating brushes in. I've got an entire discussion on texture brushes, but for right now I want to keep it absolutely simple. So there you go. There's a box, and we'll see you in the next video. And as always, I hope you learned something.